Hey, and thanks for joining us on this week's episode of For All Things Lexington, the only show dedicated to Lexington, South Carolina, and where a spade is always a spade. Here we'll talk to and about people, places, groups, things to do, and places to go in and around Lexington, South Carolina. I'm your host, Angela Barrett, and this is For All Things Lexington.
This episode of For All Things Lexington has been brought to you by the Town of Lexington Police Department, where service is our goal.
Hey guys, and thanks for joining. Today I have with me Sergeant Cameron from the Town of Lexington Police Department. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
I'm sure you're a very busy man. You are with the Special Operations Division, right?
Yep, I've been with the Lexington Police Department now. This summer will be 23 years.
Oh wow, I was going to ask that.
Had a lot of different experiences. Started out with our patrol division. Did that for a while, and then went to our traffic safety unit. And while I was there, I had a police canine for a long time. Lexingtonians, Canine Ice. I worked with him. I was his last handler. And then when he retired, he lived with our family. And from there, I went back to the road as a supervisor, and then I spent several years working on the Lexington County Multi-Agency Narcotics Enforcement Team. And then came back to investigations as a supervisor and did that for several years. And then for the last about 11 years, I've worked with our Special Operations Division and currently work with our Community Action Team and do a lot with our public information.
Yeah, because you are the Public Information Officer, right?
We have there's two of us that we split that role.
Okay.
But we have other roles in the agency as well.
And then you supervise the Community Action Team, right?
Yes.
Cool. So one of the questions I was going to ask was, so who's the police chief? It wouldn't be just Chief Green at this point. So who are the police chiefs that you work with?
Well, I was hired by Chief Roth, Mike Roth, and then Chief Stay, and then Chief Terrence Green.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. That's always interesting because, you can't always remember in succession who was there. I just knew that he hadn't been there, but was it 2007 that Chief Green came in?
Well, he's been with the town for I believe 30 years.
Right.
But he's been
the chief, yeah.
Since then.
Right. So now you guys have something called the 4-point strategic plan. Tell me about that.
So through the time that I've been with the town of Lexington, there would be times where we'd have like a strategic planning session. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes it was a day-long kind of strategy, like what are we doing as an agency? And oftentimes after that conversation was over, everybody would take notes and then it would just get folded up and put on the shelf.
Sure.
And then 2 or 3 years later, we would say, hey, we should do a strategic planning session again. And so nothing was being done, between those years of like no measurable change. So in the fall of 2014, Chief Terrence Green invited a group to come in and we did a multi-day retreat. We had our division commanders, we had supervisors over specialized units, we had officers representing everyone in the whole agency. So roughly about a third of the department, it was at this initial strategic planning session. And we did a lot of things over those 2 days. So we started out and talked about the strengths of the department, which is really fun to talk about everything that we do right. We talked about weaknesses and things that we could do better, which really, involved a lot of really tough conversations, because, supervisors got called out or groups got called out or, just ways that we were all discussing as an agency we could be better. We rewrote our mission statement. We rewrote our value statement and our vision statement. And then day 2 was spent on developing a strategic plan of things that we were going to work towards as an agency that would also have objectives that were actionable. And so the 4 things that we narrowed down were we wanted to reduce crime, specifically property crime that we wanted to focus on. We wanted to reduce response time, and then we wanted to improve community relations, and then also we wanted to improve traffic safety. So
Yeah, that's a hot topic. Traffic in general is in Lexington, but
and there's things that we can do as a police agency that have helped keep traffic flow going, and we can start with that and kind of move the other direction. But even things like doing traffic stops in parking lots without blue lights on or with minimal blue lights on, just so that drivers' attention is not distracted or doesn't cause a slowdown. Or anytime there's a collision, especially on a major thoroughfare, we want to work really hard to get those vehicles removed out of the intersection as possible. And so as part of the strategic plan, we went to our on-rotation tows and made it a requirement that if we call them for a tow, they have to be there in 20 minutes or less.
oh,
And that way, collision happens, officers get dispatched, let's say EMS and fire are there. We know that when a tow service says that they're on the way, that they know that there's that requirement for 20 minutes or less. And it allows us to get vehicles out of the roadway quickly. Officers, when they get on scene, one of the first things they do is, are vehicles movable? What lanes can we reopen? Because, with 2 state highways and a U.S. highway in Lexington, we want to, or actually two U.S. highways and a state highway, we want to get 6, 1, 378 open as quickly as possible, especially during heavy commute times in the morning and the afternoons.
right. Or any hour of the day during the Christmas holiday.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
All right. So reduce crime. What are we doing to, what's the action plan for that?
So there's several things. We wanted to establish districts. So when I started here almost 23 years ago, if something happened at Walmart, all of us would end up at Walmart. So there might be 2 or 3 officers. We would somehow all end up there just to see if they needed help or whatever. And then if something happened at 6 and I-20, we'd kind of just were like leapfrogging around town following each other. So that means that if something happened on the other side of town, 2 or 3 of us were then leaving to go that direction. So one of the things that we wanted to establish with the strategic plan was to create districts throughout the town of Lexington. And with those districts, every time officers came in, they were assigned a district. And the expectation would be that they stay in those districts. And so on any typical day, we have somewhere between 5 and 7 officers that are on duty together. Right now on a Monday, we should have like 5 or 6, maybe 7 officers that are working together. It means that each one of those officers are assigned to one of 5 districts. If there may be supervisors that then will bounce around, between those districts, but we've got a patrol officer that just stays in that area, which means a couple things. A, when they work, several days in a row, they're going to stay in those districts. They're going to understand. They're going to see things over and over again. It's going to make them more aware if they see something pop up like graffiti. It's going to make, if a vehicle looks out of place, maybe stolen vehicles sometimes will get dumped places that you just catch their attention.
Sure.
So they're going to see those things. It also means that we wanted to have officers spread out through town so that there's visibility. So most times if you drive through Lexington, it's likely that if you come in on 378, you're going to see a police officer somewhere on that 378 corridor. Let's say then you come downtown, it's likely you're going to see an officer in that area. So that, and if you go out 1, you're going to see an officer there. So what it does is it increases visibility, which, bad guys, if they see a lot of police officers, they're less apt to do crime.
Good deterrent.
And so it's also a focus for officers that they're active in business districts, in and out of parking lots. There's a real high focus on business visits, so actually getting out of your car, going in, and those numbers range $1,200 a month. During the holidays, they'll be way over 2,000 typically during the month where officers are in and out of businesses. Another part of it is that we're very visible in our neighborhoods. So, like I said, there's typically 5 to 7 officers they're dividing up almost 100 neighborhoods in the town of Lexington that they're in and out of. And so during the day shift, they're patrolling neighborhoods. Night shift, they try to make every neighborhood twice. Does it happen every night? It can't, because they're also responsible for call response, collisions, other things that happen. But ideally, if nothing's going on, then they're back in the neighborhoods again. For always having that visibility there.
And I would think from the citizens' side of this, that having the same people in that same area, it would also build a trust situation from our end as well as your end. But certainly if I'm seeing that same person repeatedly, every week, every, day, for as however many days their shifts, there begins that sense of trust.
Right.
Because it's now a familiar face.
It is. And, it's amazing. Even though we feel like we're very friendly, there's some people that don't feel like they can approach law enforcement. But if they see that same person over and over, if they see that officer driving through their neighborhood with their windows down, they can, kind of get their attention and get questions answered. What's been really neat over this 10-year period that we've done the strategic plan is that the goal was to decrease property crimes by 5%. But what we found when you crunch the numbers, that number is closer to 25%, that we've seen a reduction in property crimes throughout Lexington. So if you look at we post our CompStat presentation, which is once a month, all of us come together in a room somewhat like this where all the supervisors, our division commanders, Chief Green, Major Davis are there, and we discuss what's happened last month, what we anticipate coming in the following month. And it's also a time for us to refocus on our strategic goals that we're working on. And so it's been really neat to see those numbers go down. Another thing that we really look at is our response time. And that's one of our goals, is that we want to be, if you average out, we want to be at all of our calls at least 80% of the time in 10 minutes or less. So if you call the police, best case is that within 10 minutes, you're going to have an officer at your house. And that's for everything. If an emergency happens, typically officers are there in literally seconds,
right.
Or 1 or 2 or 3 minutes. But if it's, vandalism or shoplifting call or, all the typical suspicious persons, suspicious vehicle, things that our officers handle every day, we really try to look month to month of maintaining that 10 minutes or less response time.
And by having an officer stay in those districts, again, helps with that.
It does. So instead of all of us trying to, I don't know if you've tried to, even with blue lights, if I leave the police department and I need to go to River Bluff, it sometimes takes 15 minutes with blue lights and siren to get there.
I know.
So for some without blue lights, that time is like sometimes, doubled,
right.
At least. And so if you think about, if we are not really careful about the resources where our offices are at, you could have everybody in one spot on one side of Lexington. It may take, 25 minutes for an officer to get to a non-emergency call. And so it's been real important by using that district system. It keeps officers in the area. It helps them get to that call within the time. Now, day shift, Monday through Friday, there's a lot of us, that are here as well. Community action team, investigators, everyone throughout the department. So if we hear patrol officers getting backed up on calls and calls are holding, that's an opportunity for us to jump in the car and start answering calls. Because these goals aren't specific to, patrol's working on this and we're working on that. These are collective goals that we're all working together, and we all want to try to make sure that we maintain that 80% or better 10 minutes or less response.
So that brings me to a question or a point. So let's just say it's been a really bad day on the road. Today it's raining. I imagine it probably will be. People have a hard time driving when it's dry outside. At any point in time, even though you probably are mainly what I would say an in-office person now, other than your speaking engagements and, keeping people up to date, you can jump in the car and go to an accident scene or somebody who thinks their house is being robbed or whatever the case may be. So it's not just the people on the patrol.
Right. And we're really careful also. Like, let's say we have a collision that like shuts down in an intersection where we know it's going to stay that way. Like a power pole's down.
Yeah.
It involves a semi truck that we've got to wait maybe an hour or 2 hours for a suitable tow truck to get there. Instead of keeping our patrol officers on that scene, we'll very quickly move detectives to take over spots, community action team members, whoever's available, so that we can keep those patrol officers back in service so they're answering calls. So it's really focused on always having officers available to answer calls. And so there's always, one of the responsibilities for a supervisor is to always making sure that doing asset distribution to make sure that we're best using our officers where they need to be.
Yeah, that's good to know. All right, public communication, that would be your baby.
So improve community relations. So that had a couple different objectives. So when I started working in public information with the department, we had, I think, roughly around 5,000 people that followed us on Facebook and what was then called Twitter, now called X. And one of the things is either people thought they were following somebody and they thought it was Lexington, Kentucky, and then also they thought that Lexington Police Department was the same as Lexington County Sheriff's Department. Yeah. And so we'd even have like media invite them out to like a child seat event and do a whole story with them, video and everything. And then by the time it got to the newsroom, they would say Lexington County Sheriff's Department offered a free car seat check. And so it was a lot of education with our local media. It was a lot of education with our community that they understood that there was two police agencies. A real turning point for us was the flood event in 2015, because we were really active over that probably week time period, where it really established us. We had a tremendous like bump. I think we went from like 5,000 followers to like 13,000 followers over like 2 or 3 days.
Right.
And so then folks started to understand that we were a very knowledgeable voice in the community. And so then that's only grown. I think now we have close to 90,000 followers between all of our platforms. And so we've seen like a 600% growth over 10 years with our social media following. So it's been a great opportunity for us not only to tell department stories, but also anytime we have a critical event or if we have closed roadways for a collision or something else, that we're really active about putting that information out there. In a town of roughly 30,000 people, but upwards of 150,000 cars a day in Lexington, it's real important that we try to get that information out and really be responsive to that. So there was a social media aspect, there was getting our website updated aspect to this, but then we also wanted to look at our community events that we do. And so that's a spectrum of creating things that are for children, for young adults, for our families in town, all the way up to elderly. So every summer we just did our Groundhog Day Job Shadow program that we work with District 1, that we do a day-long event, which is like a mini Citizens Academy to give middle school students exposure to the work that we do at the police department. In the summertime, we do a Teen Citizens Academy. We are taking applications right now for the adult version of that. We offer a Citizens Police Academy class that will start in mid-March and it'll go through mid-May. And it's a way for those in the community to come one night a week and learn all about the Lexington Police Department, all the different things that we do, specialized units, what each of our divisions do. There's a lot of hands-on training. I think this year we're going to take them to the range. Folks will be able to shoot guns if they want to, and kind of go through some of the training that our officers go to for recertification, just to see that exposure. They do ride-alongs. And then when you complete that program,
that would be fun.
Yeah. And that's and that's a service that we do, whether you go to the class or not. You can sign up for a ride-along. But when you complete that Citizens Police Academy, you can then sign up to be one of our volunteers and police services members. And so that group, I think right now we have about 60 people in that group, and they are from young adults all the way up to retirees. And they're given a blue polo shirt that says Volunteers and Police Services Member. And anytime that we have a tent up at an event, they will come and help us out. And so
that was one of my questions. What was the volunteer police service program. So good. You're right.
So, yeah, it's really been an important program for us because oftentimes, well, I'll give you an example, like our Toys for Tots events.
Mm-hmm.
I think we did 12 or 14 different collection events. And so there's always a lot of things going on at that time. So we may not have multiple officers that can be there, but we can always have one officer and maybe 2 or 3 or 4 VIPs that can be there for that collection event. So it helps us with our manpower and our resources for an event. And it's great to have ambassadors that understand what, the police department does and that they can be helpful in the community. When people say, oh, they're just writing tickets because they're trying to meet a quota, they have the knowledge to say, actually, police department doesn't make any money off tickets. There isn't a quota, and we really, talk about really focused on traffic safety, about where collisions happen. And that's why you see officers, in a certain area. So this program is very helpful, and they help us with, some of those VIPs will volunteer like 100 hours, a year to the program.
Wow.
And so we're kind of in our slowdown, but starting, next month through the end of the year, we'll have multiple events a month where we use our VIPs.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. I personally want to learn more about that program. But what was I going to ask you? Oh, the next one was the traffic safety.
Yep.
No, the fourth. Yeah.
And a couple other things in our community safety or community relations is that we're super active with our neighborhoods. So we've got upwards of 100 neighborhoods. We do neighborhood safety day events where, let's say, there's been a rash of car break-ins. And something that we see in a lot of our car break-ins are unlocked cars.
Right.
Very seldom do we see broken windows. There's so many cars that are open. In fact, there's one neighborhood that I'm working with right now where they had 2 cars stolen in their neighborhood. Come to find out there's keys in both the cars that were stolen. Someone else had money stolen from their car. We see a lot of weapons. I mean, we usually see 2 to 3 dozen guns stolen every year. Usually out of unlocked cars, which is a real concern. And so working with our neighbors and neighborhoods to be at HOA meetings, be at their events, and just we're on like 40 different Facebook pages so that we can be a resource there as well.
Right.
We have an apartment coalition group that meets quarterly where we invite managers, assistant managers, staff members to all come together. We usually feed them a breakfast or a lunch. And it's just a time that, folks can talk about concerns they're having in their apartment complex. A lot of times, if one apartment complex having an issue, there's another complex having that same issue, and we kind of work on solutions for that. And we can hear about some of the concerns that are going on in our apartment complexes. So it's real important for us to have those conversations. We gain a lot from it, and it creates, kind of a work group between all of our apartment managers in that information sharing. We've got a real active child passenger seat program.
They're saying things are hard to get in.
They are, and never feel like, and it always kind of, to become a child passenger seat technician is a 32-hour class. So, if you're having problems with it because you read the directions and it still doesn't make sense, it's understandable. And, it's real important that you do have them checked. Sometimes the misuse or child seats that aren't correct is upwards of like 80% of the time that we see.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
So it's real important for parents, guardians, grandparents to take advantage of these free events. Get your car seat checked. We usually try to incentivize them. So we'll do them at, somewhere where there's ice cream or somewhere where there's a treat. That if you get your car seat checked, here's a coupon to get a free ice cream. Right. And so we see more engagement that way. And it makes it a fun event. And then every year we're part of the National Passenger Child Seat Week, where we'll typically plan an event every day that week, either at a school, at a daycare, or one of, we've got partners through town of Lexington that will, plan events there in their parking lot. So it just trying to increase that opportunity for them to get their car seats checked. And then on the other end of the spectrum of things, we have elderly visitation program. I think right now we have about 2 dozen that either family members or they've asked to be on that. It's free, especially when we have, typically month to month, we'll check in on our elderly. But then if we have big weather swings, so if we go from, let's say we were going to be 100 degrees by the end of the weekend, we would go and check in on all of them leading up to that to make sure their air conditioning was working, make sure that they didn't need anything.
And this is not like a well visit. This is something that is a regular basis.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And oftentimes we'll attach something with it where we might bring food. There's a lot of opportunities for us just to stop by and check in and, oh, by the way, we brought some fresh produce for you from a community partner, or we've got an ongoing relationship with Serve and Connect with their Greg's Groceries program. And it's just good for us to check in. And the story I always tell, several years ago, we were doing Christmas, dropping off things to our elderly for Christmas. And the woman came to the door and it was like a nice day. It was like 65 degrees, but she came and she was in a winter coat. She had gloves on. And I was like, hey, can I step in? And I go in the house and it's freezing.
Oh, God.
And come to find out, she had a gas line issue in October, and they came out and turned her gas off. So she didn't have hot water. She didn't have heat. And it was now December. And so, but she was thinking that it was going to get fixed, but didn't really know what to do.
Oh.
And so we were able to help her within a day to get her heat back, turn back on, and get her water, hot water again. So it just really highlights the importance of us doing these visits to make sure that folks are okay. So big weather swings, we always do it, but then usually once or twice a month, we'll just stop in just to see how they're doing. And that's a free service that we offer for our town of Lexington residents. And so if you know somebody that, would be a good for that, just reach out to the community action team. We usually take just some very limited information about where they live, and then always get a couple emergency contacts that if the person isn't at home or doesn't come to the door, we can follow up to make sure, they're on vacation or they had a doctor's appointment, so that we're not, we're making sure we have that follow-up in case someone's not home.
Right. And there's not actually something wrong.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, we wouldn't want...
Or you don't want to go busting in the door if, they were at the doctor's appointment.
Right. So it's just good to have those follow-up phone calls that we can check on.
Right. Now, about how many right now of the senior members do you have that y'all check on? Do you know?
I think it's right around 24.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so usually, our community action team members can divide up and go see everybody within a day. And so we kind of are careful about that to make sure that it gets done regularly.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I didn't even know about that. That's fantastic. Now, there was a question I was going to ask you about some of the community. It was about the children, and maybe it'll come back to me. But
our big community events. So we are a part of Kids Day, which happens the end of April.
Right.
And then we've been real active the last few years with our Coffee with the Cop events. For years we've done this program, but it would typically be a weekday. We'd be at Starbucks or one of our local coffee shops, but folks don't really have time to interact because they're running in, they're getting their coffee, and they're leaving. So for the last several years, we've started being at the market at Ice House. And so we're there once a month, starting from the beginning of the market season through the end. You'll find us there at least once, if not twice a month, where we've got a partnership with O'Hara's, and they provide coffee and they provide iced and hot, and then they also will do treats, cookies or scones or something, so that we have that there, and it's free. And what it's really been a great opportunity for is conversations.
Right.
And which is really why that event's been planned anyway, is to open up those type of conversations. But we're on a Wednesday morning, folks don't have time to talk. They come to the market with time on their hands, And so it's been amazing how many times you have a 20, 30, 45-minute conversation with somebody to go one-on-one and answer all the questions that they've had, or they're new to Lexington, or they're new to the area, or they didn't know all the different things that the police department does. So that's been a great opportunity for us to have those conversations.
Yeah.
We also have a yearly National Night Out program. So that program was centered around, years ago, folks would have like block parties. And it was an opportunity for law enforcement to meet with neighbors. Well, we have close to 100 neighborhoods. So it'd be impossible for 65 officers with the police department to be at, 100 different block parties. So we've started offering a centralized National Night Out event. We have a lot of our community partners there. We make it fun. We've got a DJ, there's games, and it's a free event, lots of food. And so we do that in August. And then in the fall, we have our LPD Foundation Fall Festival. And that's also involves a lot of our community partners. We do it at the Ice House Amphitheater and Pavilion. We had rides this year. Both of those events, we typically get somewhere between 1,500 and 2,500 people that come.
Oh.
So a lot of our families will come out for that. The National Night Out event's free. The fall event is ticketed, but I think this year it was $5 tickets. We had like 20 different restaurants that were there, so nobody went hungry.
Yeah.
There was a lot to do. Everything's free once you get in. We had a costume contest with great prizes. There's like 8 different categories. So it's been really fun to grow those events through the years. And then our other big event is our LPD Foundation Golf Tournament, which will be coming up the end of April. So it's a fundraiser for our LPD Foundation, but I would say that it's a golf tournament that gives a lot. As far as last couple of years, we've had some sort of hospitality tent on every single hole. So there might be games, there might be food, there might be drinks. It doesn't slow down pace of play, but it really has made our tournament really fun and somewhat different than some of the other fundraiser tournaments. And it's actually one of our biggest fundraisers for the year.
Well, that's good. This is a lot of work to put together now.
They are a lot of work. But it's a great way for us to engage with our community and have a lot of folks out. And so we're looking forward to planning for that's just starting. But so all of these events really fall into that strategic goal of improving community relations. Biggest thing is we want to be approachable. We want to be where folks are at. You'll see us at somewhere between 150 and 200 events every year. So, and it gets real busy in the fall. Like this last year, I think we did 8 or 10 different fall fests aside from our own, either at churches or neighborhoods or businesses. And then as we move into Christmas, there's a lot of Christmas events. We help out with golf cart parades, bike parades for the holidays. So it's a great way and easy ways for us to be engaged with things that are going on in our community.
Now, and you guys were just had the Lake Murray Polar Plunge, didn't you?
Yes, and so we had several officers that were part of that. I think we raised $500 or $600 for Special Olympics.
Right.
As an agency, that we do a lot of different things for that. It used to be before we had a beard policy, we would do No Shave November and December. That was a fundraiser. We would do Cops on Top of Donut Shops, and that transitioned to Cops on the Coop with Chick-fil-A. So we'll usually do 4 to 6 days a year,
right,
where we collect donations there, because it's really nice for us to be able. It's good for us to be able to sponsor. I think there's 30,000 plus Special Olympics athletes in South Carolina.
Right.
The nice thing about the fundraising that we do, it goes directly to the athletes. It goes to their games. It goes to their equipment. It goes to the athletes themselves. Travel. It doesn't pay for office folks at Special Olympics. It goes directly to the athletes. So I think it makes it easy for folks to make a donation to. And I would say overall, when we do events where we are asking for donations, it's amazing. Like folks will just like pull up the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A and be like, I'll get ready to do my spiel, and they'll hand out a $20 bill, and I'll be like, do you know what you're donating to? They're like, no, don't need to.
It's fair if y'all are asking. It's got to be good.
We trust you, and I would say that says a lot to me as a police officer in the area, that there are communities where folks don't trust the police.
Right.
And so to be in a situation where people over and over and over don't even, of course we explain it to them, but their assumption is that it's something that worthwhile. And it really shows the amount of trust that our community has in us, which is great.
Yeah, and I do think, having the same officers, and I do think that helps a lot too, in that trust factor. You're seeing the same people, and again, y'all are everywhere now. I mean, at all these events, and I don't mean as, making sure crowd control or whatever. Y'all were there participating and doing those things, so you're always there, which is great.
And another program I just thought of that we've been really active in the last several years is that we have Stop the Bleed instructors, and we have CRACE, which are like an active shooter instructor. And so we offer those trainings to churches and to businesses and to civic groups. But then we've also, for the last several years, we offer those classes every month at the police department where folks can sign up for them. And so they offer both those classes once a month, and It's, sometimes there'll be groups that will come in and take it, but it's something that we've really deep dove into. And it's amazing, when people think, well, it's just in case there's an active shooter event. Well, that Stop the Bleed program is, you can be doing yard work and have something tragic happen where knowing how to stop the bleed, set a tourniquet, all that are very important to know. And it's easy. It's an easy class. It's free. And it's something that we've literally trained thousands of people in our community on over the years. So we're even seeing that both of those programs being, we've done a lot of high school students at River Bluff, and we get a lot of requests month to month for doing, folks at the district, at different churches. So it's been a great class. Those are great classes that we've been able to offer.
Yeah, and you're right, because, think about the neighborhoods now. We've been talking about the golf cart parades. There have been some very strange but horrible accidents on golf carts, just a golf cart. So, in your neighborhood, you need to know how to do those things.
And, something we see with golf carts is that parents will buy golf carts for their children, and they don't always realize that that child needs to be 16 or older, have a driver's license. One of our neighborhoods a couple summers ago, the first day of summer, school had just gotten out, and there was a group of like 5 or 6 kids on a golf cart driving too fast, hit a curb, hit a tree.
Oof.
And, the driver ended up breaking her leg and was in a cast all summer.
Right.
And there's a lot of close calls that we hear in our neighborhoods about kids on golf carts. So it's always a good reminder, you got to have insurance.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have a permit from the state to be on the roadway. The biggest thing is you've got to be a licensed driver. And that's something, that we usually follow up with a visit to the parents, explain. Most parents don't realize, if we continue to have issues, then, the parent can actually get a ticket for allowing a child to drive, which is problematic,
Right.
It's a fine. And then also that driver, it can driving without a driver's license, which can keep them later on from getting a driver's license. So, first thing that we do with, and this still falls under our traffic safety, is a lot of education. We use our social media for that. We work with local media with that. We try to really focus on the reasons why collisions happen, to be preventative. And we also want to do a lot of education along with enforcement around impaired driving. It's been really amazing the last few years to see folks really think of it as impaired driving as drunk driving.
Mm-hmm.
And it's from alcohol and it happens at night. But we had a really alarming section of time where we had a lot of DUI, driving under the influence during the day, and they were pill related, where folks were misusing their prescription narcotics or narcotics that weren't prescribed to them, but they were using someone else's and not realizing that that was a problem when they got behind the wheel, and it caused collisions. They were obviously intoxicated drivers, and so there's a lot of education that falls under that as well.
Yeah, and good point, because I know most adults do realize that DUI is not just alcohol, but there are some of your younger drivers that do not.
Right.
So good. That's a good point. I was going to ask. Oh, okay. So to go along with the traffic safety, and I know we need to wrap this up. You've got to get back, but because I think we could probably TPD about a lot of this stuff, because I still have like 2 more ratings and questions. We'll have to get back together. But traffic safety, let's just talk. I'm going to take the polar plunge. Just take that one incident. What all does it take you guys to be able to get just that section ready for that event? Because the road's blocked.
Right.
And that's a lot of prep.
And that's actually Lexington County Sheriff's Department.
Oh, and that one, because it's the dam?
Because it's the dam.
I gotcha.
So our jurisdiction ends around Pilgrim Church.
No, that's right.
Yeah. So we haven't extended out to it.
So take another example that would be, something for a small event, a 2-hour event.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
so
what are the races?
Yeah, we have foot races.
Yeah.
And so that involves a lot of road closures.
Yep.
Years ago, folks might remember Race Against Hunger, which would close down it was extensive. It was a 10K, and it would start at Saxgotha. It would go all the way through town.
Yeah.
It would literally take 100 to 150 volunteers and police officers to do that event, to make all the closures. Over the years, we've kind of moved away that we're really careful about when we do 5Ks and 10Ks, that the route, we want to choose a least impactful route for travelers that aren't a part of that. So whether it's the Sheriff's Department with some of theirs that they're involved in, or ours that are centered in Lexington, we've really tried to minimize how much it affects the roadways. And so that decreases, how much travelers are affected, and also how many officers that we have to staff for that. Big events for us, like parades, like Christmas Parade, Veterans Parade, St. Patrick's Parade, or a downtown event. And so it takes about 30 officers for us to do that. And it ends up being a day long. There's a group of officers that come out, they work with our transportation department to set barricades and signs and cones. And then we have a group that comes in, there's roadways that are closed for floats to be made and put together, and then preparation for the parade to start. And then once the parade's going, there's a lot of roadways and detours. And so it takes a lot of logistics to do that.
Right. And a lot of man hours prior to any of the first cone ever being put.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
lots of man.
Whether it's a parade or fall festival or the golf tournament, literally is hundreds of hours.
Right.
In a lot of these. And talking whether it's traffic safety or an event related, or if it's things that we do with our community, something that is really neat that I've thought over the years is our community partnerships. And one of the things that if you go into it, we'll get calls and we'll say, hey, our child won't go to school. We need an officer to come out and do a scared straight, conversation.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah. That's so. And there really isn't, because
mine's 30 now.
Right. For a police officer, it puts a police officer in a really weird situation to come in and try to give this kid a pep talk to make him go to school. What's been better for us to say is that if you're having issues with your child, family court has resources, DJJ has resources of different presentations that they do that are going to be more impactful than a police officer coming in for a conversation. And so for whether it's teen pregnancy or unplanned pregnancy, whether it's homelessness, whether it's substance abuse or families that are involved in substance abuse, police officer can't be that Band-Aid every time. And so it's...
Well, you also don't want that image to a child that you can't, because that's who you want them to go to if they're in trouble. So if they're giving you all this negativity.
Correct.
So I agree. Absolutely.
And so it's been real important for us to have those partnerships that we can transition folks to, so that if someone calls in desperation, they don't know what to do next, and they want the police officer to be there to help them, it's been more helpful for us to say, call this person, call this organization. They are there specifically for that. So learning all these different resources and be able to share those, whether it's at our events that we do. Probably our most impactful one for that is that Thanksgiving for the last 7 years, the Tuesday before, we've offered something called Bountiful Harvest. And so we've provided holiday groceries through our partnership with Serve and Connect. Last year, Walmart supplied the groceries for 200 food boxes that we gave out the day of. One of the State Farm agents invested $2,000 into chickens that we were able to provide as a protein for Thanksgiving meals. But then we also did a sit-down meal where we fed like 300 or 400 people that day. Hudson's, we did like a catered meal, and then we had a resource fair where we had 3 dozen of our community partners that were out there. And so it's a great opportunity for folks. What we didn't want is folks to just roll up, get their food, and leave. We want them to stay and take advantage of that community resource fair. And so we've created a passport. So when folks get signed in, they've got to go around and get at least a dozen different signatures from community partners. And so they're able to engage and learn about opportunities for them that they might not have realized that were there.
Yeah.
And so this last year, we just got the after action report. We had 28 different zip codes from folks that were there at that event.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't just a 29072 event, 29073. There were folks that came from Orangeburg and Saluda and Richland County because A, they needed holiday groceries.
Sure.
B, they were able to connect with a lot of our community partners. And so that's been a really neat program to see grow every year. Walmart was there with us last year, and then Sam's Club showed up, and they're like, we want to double the amount of boxes that we do for next year. And so they've committed to doing like 400 boxes for next year. So we're going to be able to see that impact, really grow. So it's really neat to see programs, our community-focused programs, not only be impactful locally, but then look for every year that we look out to grow them and to make them more impactful throughout the Midlands.
Yeah, that's really neat. And so on the website or either the Facebook page, if somebody wants to learn more about just a few of these programs,
right?
Because again, I still have pages here I didn't even get to ask about. But where can they go and learn more about these programs? I mean,
so there's a lot of resources on our Facebook page, and then we're always available through our social media pages. And as things are coming up, like today, I'll share that we're taking applications for our Citizens Police Academy. And we'll take those until like the second week of March. And that class would be capped at like 25 people. And so programs that we're doing ongoing, we share a lot on our social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram, just as a reminder.
Okay.
And then you'll see us in Town Topics. If you're a Town of Lexington resident, you'll see things in there. And then, of course, the website.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And again, we're obviously going to have to get back together.
We have to do it again.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks for hanging out with us today, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a person, business, idea, an event that Lexington needs to know more about, email me, local@forallthingslexington.com. That's the number 4, y'all.
And by Angela Barrett at HomeMattersSC.com. Building on what matters to you.